On Christmas Eve, 1971, Julianne boarded Lanza Flight 508 with her mother and 84 other passengers. From Lima, Peru. The flight was scheduled to land in Pucallpa, Peru, but was struck by a bolt of lightning. The plane went into a nosedive, broke into smithereens, and Julianne, who was still strapped to her seat, soon found herself ejected out of the plane, plummeting down in a free-fall mode 10,000 feet into the Amazon jungle. When she woke, she was all alone in the middle of the Peruvian jungle with no help and no survivors. In addition, she had a heavy concussion, a broken collarbone, deep cuts on her arm and leg, her left eye swollen shut, and her right eye partially swollen. As for any gear, she had next to nothing. She had lost her glasses, one shoe, and was wearing a sleeveless mini dress that provided no protection against snakes, spiders, and mosquitoes. Her chances of surviving the brutal jungle with her wounds and the animals all around were next to zero. Yet she survived, walking for 10 days in the jungle, avoiding piranhas, fighting deadly insects, bearing a painful maggot-infested wound, and starvation. Finally, she came upon a small boat and a hut on a river. She dragged herself into the hut and fell unconscious. The next day a group of Peruvian lumberjacks found her and brought her to the next town. She became an unlikely celebrity overnight and became known as the Miracle Girl, and started receiving hundreds of letters from people she had never met before. It was an extraordinary act of survival the world had never seen before. As Julianne says later about the unexpected stardom, "It was so strange. Some of the letters were simply addressed, Julianne, Peru, but they still all found their way to me." The story of Julianne Kopka. Julianne still remembers those horrifying moments when tongues of lightning had surrounded the plane. "When we saw lightning around the plane, I was scared. My mother and I held hands, but we were unable to speak. Other passengers began to cry and weep and scream. That was when her mother had said very calmly, 'That is the end, it's all over.' Those were the last words she heard from her as the plane nosedived and broken into pieces in midair. It was pitch dark and people were screaming, and Julianne found herself ejected out of the plane, plummeting down in a free-fall mode 10,000 feet into the Amazon jungle. When she woke up, she found herself in the middle of the Peruvian jungle teeming with animals, heavily injured and frightened. She had a broken collarbone, deep cuts on her arms and legs, and a torn ligament in her knee that made it difficult for her to walk. If there was anything that was on her side, that was the training given by her parents. Her parents worked at a research station in the Amazon, and she learned some basic skills from them to survive the green hell, as the Amazon forest is called. There were 3 basic survival lessons she learned from her zoologist father and ornithologist mother. It is not the big animals but the insects, spiders, ants, flies, and mosquitoes that will kill you. Find a river. That is where you find human settlements. Don't be tempted to eat any fruit. That could be poisonous. She followed their lessons to a T. At the crash site, she found a small bag of sweets which was to be her only food for the next 10 days. She found a creek and walked into the water as that was the safest way to avoid getting bitten. Sometimes she will find a crocodile approaching her, but she knew that crocodiles don't attack unless provoked. It was very hot and rained several times a day, and her mini dress was woefully inadequate for her situation. The wound on her upper arm had become septic, and soon it was infested by centimeter-long maggots. She was tired, in deep pain, and hallucinating, but she persisted on. On the 4th day, she found the bodies of 3 passengers rammed headfirst into the earth. It was a horrifying scene that still gives her nightmares. Luckily her mother was not one of them. On the 10th day finally, following the creek, she came across a hut with a palm leaf roof, an outboard motor, and a liter of gasoline. She poured the gasoline over her maggot-infested wound, another lesson she had learned from her father. The pain was intense, but the maggots died. Dead tired, she dropped unconscious within the hut. The next day, she was rescued by a group of Peruvian lumberjacks who took her to the nearest town and admitted her to a hospital. She was the sole survivor of the plane crash. How did she survive? Her unlikely survival has been the subject of much speculation. Some say her seatbelt helped her to mitigate the impact, and her life might have been saved due to the thunderstorm's updraft and the thick foliage she fell into. Others say, her training helped her to survive, although everybody admits that even the most experienced jungle trekker cannot survive the relentless Amazon jungle without any equipment or protection. Some even say it was her one-track mind of only focusing on getting the help that prevented her brain from getting fogged by fear or panic. Whatever be the reason, Juliane Kopka's saga of extreme survival only teaches us one lesson: at the end of the day, it is our mental attitude that determines our future. We all get knocked down and experience moments in our lives when everything appears lost. The key to surviving these moments is just to plod on and on and on until we break through the dark clouds and reach our golden goal. As Bruce Lee has aptly said, "Remember, my friend, it is not what happens that counts, it is how you react to them." Your mental attitude determines what you make of it, either a stepping stone or stumbling block.